Okay, so now that we got the disclaimer out the way, we're gonna get ready to to demo our project. However, before we demo our project, we want to make sure we do a few extra precautions. First, we want to check what environment we are in, and we want to check our environment by first checking what directory are we in and who are you to make sure that you have permission to run the files, as well as we want to check to see what Python version you are running. And if you're running it on Ubuntu like I am, we want to use the uname-a command in order to check what operating system we're using. So the output would look something like, if this command run, like this, where it shows the operating system that I'm using, the Python version, as well as the user that I am. Next, we want to check what permissions we have. We want to check what permissions we have to execute the files secret.json, databaseutilities.py, packetlogger.py, runalltax.py, as well as the reportgenerator.py. In order to do that, we use the ls-la command in order to list all the permissions that we have for the file. In order to run this, we need the read, write, and execute permission. And if you have the correct permissions, it will look something like this. Now, we can get into actually running our attacks. Before we do that, we want to make sure that we have Wireshark open. So, and that we have a secret file. The secret file will include your MAC address, your IP address, as well as the interface that you're testing the project on. I'm not going to show you the secret file because I don't want to show my actual IP address, and it's needed in order to run the project successfully. But the interface that I'm going to be running this project on is my Wi-Fi, which I have permission because I am the owner. So I'm going to select the Wi-Fi interface, and then I'm going to let this run for a little bit, and then navigate to my runallattacks.py file, and then I'm going to run this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down, and as we can see, all these grayed out packets are stuff that is getting sent by our attacks, which we're going to be able to validate shortly. So the different attacks that we're running are an SYN Flood, a UDP Flood, a ICMP Sweep, a slow iris attack, a DNS Flood, as well as a TLS weak check, and a ping sweep. So the reason why the slow iris attack is having so many failed sockets is because I didn't want to actually do it on my port for my actual computer because it will cause some errors such as my computer not being able to work anymore. So in order to do that, I just had to test the port range from 0 to 50, which you can edit as needed. You can change it to a lower number or a higher number depending on how much you would like to see. So once this is done, we also have an FTP anonymous login that's also going to be run after this attack. So we're just going to give it some time. But while we do that, in order for you to see the different attacks, we're going to type in E, which is our Ethernet.source, SRC, equal to our whatever MAC address you have. Well, whatever MAC address your attacker has, which I will not be able to show as of yet because I don't want my MAC address leaked. However, if I scroll through here, you can see a lot of different information packets that are being sent from to the destination address to the IP address, the source address being my source IP address and my source address, and the destination being my IP address. So if we keep scrolling down, they got TCP. We can see the different types of attacks that are being sent, and now I'm going to stop the Wireshark because all our attacks finished running. Our next step is going to be running our executive report. So in order to run our executive report, we're going to our report generated.py file, and we're just going to run that. It'll take a moment. Awesome. So we had the executive report that ran. No, it did not. What? Okay. So let me go this in. So we can see our risk severity overview, which has different PNG files that we can see. So we can see the different attacks. So DNS flood had a lot, but oh, it's kind of we had some errors where it kind of mushed everything together. But the highest flood amount, it seems, was the SYN flood. So the packets.png, so the different type of packets that were sent. The most packets that were sent was from my attacks was the TCP and the severity. We had some severities that were high, none that were very high. We have moderate severity, low, and very low severity attacks. All right. In our executive report, we'll find the top five findings, which is the slow eyes attack had a score of 75.0. The FTP anonymous login, which shows the IP address, has also scored 75, as well as DNS flood, as well as the FTP anonymous attacker also has a score of 75, and the DNS flood has a score of 71.2, which means that the previous attacks have a higher severity of actually causing an issue. So now for the recent events, we can see that at on today's date, which is October 10th, 2025, at 6:50 p.m., we had a UDP flood attack, which came from this address to our source address, which sends a lot of different UDP attacks. And now we scroll down, we have the mitigation recommendations that which we use the NIST 800-53 in order to find mitigation techniques for the different type of flood attacks. So for the UDP flood, we have to implement, in order to mitigate this, we have to implement a rate limit UDP traffic, filter unused UDP ports at the firewall, deploy DDoS protection services, and it also gives a brief alignment, which so the function protect, detect, and respond, the different categories, which is network protection, unauthorized connections, as well as incident analysis. For the SYN flood, we enable SYN cookies on the host, apply a limit rating for TCP connections, use a firewall as IDS to detect and block floods, which we did none of that because our purpose was to actually see the attacks happen on our system as well as put a score into it. So our system isn't a intrusion prevention system; it's more of an intrusion detection system. That also gives like brief overview of the different types of attacks that are the different mitigation techniques that are recommended in order to prevent these types of attacks. So for the ICMP Sweep, our mitigation steps was disable ICMP responses on sensitive hosts, limit ICMP echo requests using firewall rules, and the function for the from this is to detect. And the categories are DE CM-1, which is network monitoring, and DE-CM-7, which is scan detection. And this report has other attacks limited has other attacks such as the TCL LS, the FTP anonymous, and slow iris. And all right, so that's it for the project demo. I am going to come back and show how we how we can prove that the attacks actually happened on Wireshark. Okay.